Welcome to Pure Intuitive Talk with me, Trish Smith. I'm a multi-dimensional channeler sharing my gift to assist others to connect and work with their whole being, helping bring them into a beautiful way of high-frequency living. Immerse yourself in an hour of nourishment that feeds your spiritual journey and invites you to embrace your empowered soul. You'll feel armed with new understandings for how to shift from pain to love as we explore topics from shamanic sound healing to gut health. Are you ready to take accountability for the impact that we have on the world around us and learn new tools and techniques to feel whole again? Of course you are, and you're in the right place. Pure Intuitive Talk starts now. Hey everybody, welcome to Pure Intuitive Talk. I'm your host, Trish Smith. You're tuned into Transformation Talk Radio. And today we are going to be talking about creating balance in our lives. I had developed a series that I teach locally. It's called a Body, Mind, and Spirit Wellness series. And I find myself, I've taught that class 5 times now, or the series, and I find myself reminding people, because it's not like nobody knows this, about balance and the value that creating balance in our own lives holds for us. For example, our body. Right? Our body can become physically ill. Our body can be very strong. Our body can become weak at different times of our lives. And then the same thing happens in our mind. And so when those things are going on in our mind, they also wear on our spirit, right? And so it's important to acknowledge all 3 of those things about ourselves, in my opinion. I know sometimes in different practices, oftentimes in shamanic practices, they'll say like, it's your spirit. If anything is ailing you, it's your spirit. And oftentimes it is something that maybe starts in your spirit, right? But there's also the truth that our physical bodies become ill because of the way that we're treating them or not taking care of them. And sometimes we're born with conditions that we have no control over that, ail us physically. And sadly, the fact that everything's so intertwined, our body, mind, and spirit, and all of those interconnectedness pieces that go with it, affect each other. So when our physical body is unwell, it does take a toll on our spiritual practice, right? And it takes a toll on us spiritually, and mentally. And the same thing goes for our mind, right? If our mind is unwell, the body will follow, right? Because every cell in our body is listening to our mind. And so if our mind is unwell, then our body can become physically unwell. And so I would argue that everything that is occurring in our body and in our mind is solely coming from our spiritual unwellness. I believe that it all affects all of it, right? So if we're feeling spiritually unwell, our body is going to manifest that. If we're feeling mentally unwell, our spirit is going to manifest that. So it's just all interconnected. And in my opinion, we can't separate them unless until the day comes that we are physically separated from our physical body and we leave it behind, right? But until then, while we're in these bodies, it's important to create balance in our lives for our body, mind, and spirit. Some ways that I do that for myself is that I pay attention to where I'm at on a regular basis. So if there is something that feels like it's dragging me down, if it feels heavy, if it feels like it's causing turmoil in my mind, I'll spend time with it. I'll look at it, decide where it's coming from, right? And so if it's something that is in my mind, then I have the opportunity to change my mindset, right? Or I have the opportunity to honor it. So deciding what medicine is correct too for each problem that we're facing or each challenge that we have is important, because there are times when we have been grieving and we're grieving really hard, and it's important to take a break from that for our own body, for our own mental health, and install some joyous activities, times where we get to be connected with others, things that bring us into a lighter frequency. But But there's also times when we're going through something that's very challenging, spiritually or mentally or physically, and then we start avoiding those things, right? And so we're not going to be able to get to the root if we're not willing to look underneath what's going on. And in order to create balance, because creating means that's in our control, right? Because we are co-creators. And so in order to create balance, we have to know what we're looking at, right? So we have to take the assessment and look at everything we've got going on. Where am I at physically? Where am I at mentally? Where am I at spiritually? Okay. For example, I'm grieving, right? And I've allowed myself the time to sit with the deep hurt and grieve. And then to create balance for that, I go ahead and make some lunch dates with some friends. I reach out to people I care about and have conversations with them. Maybe I sign up for a pottery class and find things to install in my life that bring me joy, right? However, if I'm in that same position where I'm grieving and I haven't taken the time to decide where I'm at, right? To take the assessment and acknowledge where my body's at, where my mind is at, where my spirit is at, and I'm avoiding my own pain, I'm going to quickly come out of balance, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And that's where we end up in that downward spiral. And when I say we, that is because I myself do the same thing on occasion, right? So most of the time I'm pretty good at taking care of creating balance and managing balance in my life. But like all other people, I also fall short sometimes and find myself in a downward spiral. Um, so if you're in that downward spiral, if you don't know which way is up, and I've been there plenty of times myself, start taking inventory. Figure out where are you at? What seems to be lacking, right? And then take the time to find something to install in that place, that void. If it's connection, make connection. If it's joy, create times of opportunity for yourself to experience joy. Um, so we talked a little bit about maybe mental, maybe spiritual stuff, like right when it comes to grieving. But it's important to acknowledge that our physical body needs a lot of maintenance. Sometimes I get caught saying things like, taking care of this body is a full-time job. And sometimes it feels like that, but in the society that I live in the United States of America, you have to read all the ingredients. You have to know where your food is coming from. And sometimes it does feel like a full-time job. But that being said, it's not like we don't have the information, right? So we have the information. We can turn over that container and look at the ingredients in it and decide to put whole foods into our body. The truth being that our physical body is the only one that we have for this lifetime is supposed to be something, a truth, a fact that ignites our mind to say, okay, I've got to take care of it, right? I think I've quoted this meme before, but I saw a meme once that had said, I exercise because I love my body, not because I hate it. And it really rang true for me. For me, in particular, I've always been very thin. And so I tend not to get in a lot of cardio. I know people that struggle with their weight, like most people do. Most people struggle with their weight. They are actually in better physical shape than I have been at certain times in my life, because they're wanting to maintain a physical appearance. And so because of that, they end up doing more cardio and exercising more, and they're much healthier for it, right? So for myself, knowing that I struggle in that area, it's a place I have to push myself in. I have to drag it up to the top of my priority list, right? Okay, yes, I'm maintaining my mental health. Yes, I'm maintaining my spiritual health. Uh-oh, I'm slacking in my physical health. So come back over here, give attention to that area, right? And that not not only is exercise important, as we know, and stretching, right? So bone density, as we grow older, our bones, our body need to be able to be flexible. So I practice yoga, but we also need to build strength. Um, and what we put in our body is creating, an ecosystem inside of ourselves and how our body is going to age. So myself, I want to go ahead and reduce the inflammation as much as possible. I don't eat a lot of inflammatory foods. Sometimes I slip on that slippery slope and find myself eating sugar. I try to behave myself as much as possible. But that's an area that affects our mental health so acutely, right? So our gut health is directly connected to our mental health, and there's a ton of information out there on it. I think it's 95% of our serotonin is created in our gut. And so there's studies out showing that depression can be an allergic reaction to inflammation in the brain. So when I find myself eating more sugar, eating more junk, and I really don't eat a lot of it. But and then I start to feel more depressed. I start to feel more down. I have to remind myself, like, oh yeah, get back on that physical, go take care of that physical health. And restore the balance that is important to me to maintain. So that being said, maintaining our physical health contributes to our mental health, right? And then every cell in our body is listening to our mind. So we have to also upkeep our thoughts, right? It's very powerful, our thoughts. Okay. And that for me in particular is an area of deep struggle. It's something that I work very hard to get myself out of places that become depressive. I grieve hard. And so it's not easy. It's not easy trying to maintain balance in our life for ourselves as an individual. But there's some tips and tricks that I'd like to show you when we get back. We're going to take a break. One of them is one of my favorite tools when it comes to reducing anxiety. And we all know what kind of havoc anxiety wreaks on our body. So stay tuned. Thank you for being here. My name is Trish Smith. I'm the host of Pure Intuitive Talk. Right now, you're tuned into Transformation Talk Radio. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Pure Intuitive Talk. I'm your host, Trish Smith. And earlier, before we went to break, we were talking about creating balance in our lives. We personally, here in the States, we live in a country where, in my opinion, we are so out of balance. People's priorities tend to be in the material world and chasing the next bigger, better thing. And we lose track and maybe forget the value of our own innate wisdom and tuning into that and knowing where we're at as an individual in our own walk spiritually. Because the truth is that we are a spiritual being having a physical experience. We are not a physical being having a spiritual experience. And for some of us, our experience is more spiritual than others simply because that's our focus, right? That's what we prioritize. I'm in that boat. I'm in the boat of prioritizing what means the most to me spiritually. And so because I've been walking that walk for decades now, a few decades, I have learned some things along the way which have been helpful to me. And that's why I developed the series that I teach, is because they are tools that I've been able to share with others and have had a lot of really great feedback. And I'm grateful for the practices that I've learned. One of them that I had mentioned before was one of my favorite ones is actually the emotional freedom technique. So I'm going to assume that a lot of you out there have heard of it. But then at the same time, every time I think everybody's heard of it, I come to realize that they don't. When I'm teaching my classes, I'll say, okay, most of you have probably heard of emotional freedom technique. Most of them haven't. And for me, that feels super unfortunate because it's such an effective and valuable tool. And it's so simple, easy to do. You can do it anytime, anywhere for free, which is exactly the tools I like to hand to people because I want to be able to put the power in their hands, right? So even in my private practice, when I have a client in my office, my goal is to put power, their own power, like basically remind them of the power in their hands, but also give them tools that empowers them to remember their own power. And I think that emotional freedom technique does a really good job of giving somebody individual power, right? Something that you can utilize that helps physically, mentally, and spiritually with your own fingertips, right? So if you would like to follow along with me, you can. If not, you can watch. There's tons of YouTube videos out there on emotional freedom technique. It's also been called tapping. You'll see people tapping, right? So emotional freedom technique utilizes 8 of the 12 meridians that they use in acupuncture. So we're simply tapping on those points. And it opens up those channels, those energetic channels that become blocked over, over the use of these bodies and minds, right? It's kind of like your engine oil getting old and grimy, and you're like, okay, we got to flush that out and put in nice new engine oil. And our body is the same, right? We get those blocks, energetically, just from all kinds of emotions going on, and sometimes physical, right? If we're not moving our body, if we're not doing breathing exercises, and our lymphatic system is starting to get, backed up. I know people don't like the term cesspool, but if we're not taking care of our lymphatic system, we turn into cesspools. Our lymphatic system becomes ill, and those chemicals that sit in there do damage, and they wreak havoc on us, not only physically, but mentally. And then what happens there starts bothering us spiritually. So I wanted to go ahead and walk you guys along in the emotional freedom technique. I'm going to do it pretty simply and pretty briefly. So I would encourage you to go to YouTube. There's tons of different videos out there that you can find people walking you through. I mean, there's tapping on everything now. But the emotional freedom technique is a technique that was created, I want to say in the 70s, right? And when I first started practicing it, it was probably 12, 15 years ago. And then I went ahead and did a bunch of research to create the handouts for the class that I teach. And I ended up discovering that in recent years, they have all kinds of scientific evidence now backing the physiological benefits that happen when we utilize the emotional freedom technique. So that was really, really cool. When I was creating my handouts to find that information, I'm like, that's so awesome, because I've already experienced the benefit of using it, physically, like what I feel, but knowing that it's actually, reducing inflammation and all kinds of stuff. You can research it yourself. But yeah, it's, it gets into gene expression, the whole 9 yards. So to practice emotional freedom technique, we begin by identifying the issue that we want to work on. We can work with anxiety. We can work with like pain, physical pain. So for today, maybe we'll just work with anxiety because that's a common issue people have. And so now we've identified the issue. Our sentence that we say would be something like, even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I still love and accept myself, right? And so we have their karate chop here is the first point, and our setup phase will be just that. It'll be, even though I'm experiencing all this anxiety, I love and accept myself, right? So before we start our tapping sequence, we want to go ahead and give ourselves a number on the level of what we're experiencing. So if we tune in and we decide, oh my gosh, my anxiety is at an 8, we do a round of tapping. The goal is to bring that number down, and we can do it over and over again until that number does come way down to a number we're comfortable with, or maybe we even plateau. So we've identified the issue. It's our anxiety. We've tuned in, we've gotten a number. Mine currently would feel like a 4. Sometimes it feels like a 9,000. But anyways, so we've identified the issue, got our number. We'll start our tapping sequence. 3 times we tap on our karate chop. Even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I love and accept myself. We go to the top of our head. Even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I love and accept myself. Then we go to our eyebrow. Even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I love and accept myself. Outer eye. Even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I love and accept myself. Under the eye. Even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I love and accept myself. Under the nose. Even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I love and accept myself. Chin. Even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I love and accept myself. And we go to the collarbone here. Even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I love and accept myself. And we go under the arm, about the bra strap line for women. Even though I'm experiencing this anxiety, I love and accept myself. So that is the tapping sequence. We want to go through that a good 3 times and then check back in and look at our number again. Typically, it would be reduced maybe a couple points. If you're having a really bad anxiety attack, like I've had panic attacks where my anxiety is just absolutely through the roof, and I've had to tap for probably a good 20 minutes before I can really get it down to the point where I'm able to focus, my mind is clear again. Because if you know anxiety, you know that when you go into a panic attack, like you don't think straight, right? You're not thinking correctly. So I encourage you, like I said, I was going to give you a brief demonstration and a brief amount of information on it because there is so much information out there on it. So I encourage you to Google it, to look at YouTube videos, maybe find an instructor that feels right for you. People also practice emotional freedom technique in their private practices, either as life coaches. I do that with my clients often, or a counselor therapist. So it's practiced widely. But it's one of my favorite. It's one of the best techniques that I've found that quickly and effectively reduce the anxiety, or even the emotion that we're experiencing, the unwanted emotion that we're experiencing. So I encourage you to try it. And if you have any questions about it, you can always reach out to me. You can find me at pureintuitiveguide.com. And I have a couple of websites actually. There's also Pure Intuitive Coach. So if you want to look at that one, I believe that they all drop into the same one now, but I'm not tech savvy. So if you try to find me on the internet, though, look for Pure Intuitive Guide and it should get you there. So I also wanted to not only give you that tool, but remind you about the importance of our spiritual aspect, right? So we talked a lot about our physical body and the value and importance of maintaining our physical health so that it helps contribute to our positive mental health. But our spiritual health, like, are we taking the time to look at things that are coming up for us? I recently had a friend who was explaining they were experiencing old stuff coming up. And I found it interesting because I too have had really old stuff coming up lately. So it's up for clearing, right? Things that I hadn't processed since I was in high school. And those things that want to get cleared out of our system when they come up, it's time to look at them, right? So maintaining our spiritual health is so, so, so important. Because it is true, right? In shamanism, when they say that our spiritual health is affecting our physical health, that is absolutely true. I just don't personally believe it's the only contributing factor, because there's too many people, unfortunately, that are, living off McDonald's and sugar and all that other stuff. And so when you're damaging your physical body, that is a physical manifestation, right? Those are chemical reactions that are happening in our body. But the truth is that, yes, our spiritual health also does affect our physical health and our mental health. So I encourage you to take the time to look underneath what's going on. And if you notice that your spirit needs addressing, give yourself the time out, give yourself a reset, maybe take some personal time to be alone and sit and listen to your own thoughts and go in as deep as you can and allow your inner knowing to come to the surface and guide you. That's honestly most of the work that I do in my private practice, is reminding others to go in and listen to themselves. I know it can be very difficult in a world full of distractions and so many talking heads, and I feel like another one of them on this show, to be honest with you. Like, hi, I'm another talking head. But truly, 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 we all need to sit and listen to ourselves and allow our inner wisdom to guide us through this life. So I encourage you to do that. Lots of encouragement today. Found myself saying I encourage you a lot. But I want to be able to help empower you to empower yourself. That's my work with myself, is making my way through the world, one day at a time, trying my best to be as whole as I can be. And so I just hope that you're able to walk the same, and that you give yourself that time. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. I hope that I have inspired you today to pay attention to your mental health, to your physical health, and to your spiritual health, and that I've inspired you to maybe create some balance between those three. And if I've been able to do that for you, then my time was not wasted here, because it's really important to me to be able to pass along the tools that I've learned that have helped me. So I think that's the best that we can do for all of us. So if you haven't heard of emotional freedom technique and you do try and it does help you, pass it on to your friends. Tell everybody you know. That's the best thing, in my opinion, that we can do, is just hand down these tools that are helping us. If something helps you, tell everybody about it, right? Let's help each other feel better. Let's help ourselves, help each other, right? Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I'm Trish Smith, the host of Pure Intuitive Talk and your Pure Intuitive Guide. Thank you for listening to Pure Intuitive Talk with me, Trish Smith, your Pure Intuitive Guide. Come back and join us for encouragement to take responsibility and to connect to your whole being. Remember that every moment is the right moment to choose peace, acceptance, and forgiveness. We all have the courage to look deep within, get real with ourselves, and make upgrades to our ways of interacting with the world. It's been my privilege to share this hour with you. For more information about me, go to pureintuitiveguide.com. That's pureintuitiveguide.com. Thanks again, and we will see you here next time on Transformation Talk Radio.